Hey, John Gilroy here. The term cloud native is so well known that luminaries debate its actual meaning. Today, we dive into AI native and how it applies to compliance. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator. Our guest today is Sri Iyer, I-Y-E-R, and he's the founder and CTO of a company called KOVR.AI, and that is spelled KOVR.AI. All kinds of spelling here, huh, Sri?
Yeah, try to make it easy.
Yeah. Okay, everyone knows cloud native, now AI native. I went to your website, and it's plastered all over the place. So for the purposes of the discussion, before we jump in, so what exactly do you mean by AI native?
So, I think it's like kind of first of all, thank you for having me on. Very, very cool. Awesome podcast. Love it. And so we've had this moment, I think, with generative AI where systems are changing. Like I used to sell RPA automation. I used to even sell AI like at PwC, and I was a data scientist for a long time. I don't think it's until like the last year that we've really had software applications that at their core can use AI at scale, right? Like, so you can literally have your business logic of your software application be run by a large language model. We've always had components and pieces of applications that do that. And if you think of the compliance space, you really have had a lot of automation solutions in the past, but in many ways, you're still doing all the work. It's just like you're doing it in a web application, or there's like some script that will run that'll do your stuff for you. Here, you legitimately, with AI native applications, the idea is that AI is actually doing the work, is actually doing the business logic, is doing all of that processing for you. And we can get into why that's relevant for compliance in a little bit, but that's kind of like the gist of sort of what the AI native means.
Yeah, and I follow compliance pretty carefully. I listen to podcasts about CMMC. That's how boring I am.
I was like, I do that because it's my job, yeah. But like you're doing that on your free time.
We should get together and put people to sleep, huh? And so the last podcast on CMMC, the guy used the word final. Well, it's final now. The CMMC is all final. And I guess I had final 2 years ago as well. And maybe you heard it 3 years ago. So when it comes to compliance, is that final word to be used, or that should be like erased from all podcasts with CMMC?
Yeah, I think with all standards, there's a bit of like an asterisk whenever you say final. And I think it's also like, when do people even move off of old standards? I was talking to, I'm not going to name the agency, but a government agency that is still on Rev 3 of 853, which, by the way, at this point, I think is like 20 years old or something. And so, yes, like people take time to migrate and adopt standards, and sometimes they don't adopt them fast enough, and the standard already changes. I mean, we had that happen with the AI RMF. NIST put a lot of time into that, and I think like they've now switched gears to a different sort of model for AI. And so, yeah, I think like compliance is fluid, and I think it's becoming more fluid because IT and technology is becoming more fluid. So, what today would take like 3 years to build a new system, you can start building systems in weeks now, days even. I've got my like co-founder CEO building his own like CRM sales application in Cursor. So like, even people that can't code can build software nowadays. And so I think it's just the world is changing and things are getting more complicated. So the standards are trying to adapt to that. And I think you're seeing a lot of that fluidity now.
Well, let's take that amplification, apply it to compliance. Did my homework on your company, and there's a fellow named Brandon Farwell. He's quoted in a press release, and he says, I love this quote. He goes, "Compliance debt shouldn't be a blocker for innovation. It takes companies up to 1,000 hours to do what KOVR.AI can do in 15 minutes. Well, that's a pretty bold statement, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Brandon's awesome. First of all, he's one of our investors, and worked. He was one of the early investors in OpenAI. And so I think let's start with the first part, right? The blocker part to innovation. I'm a military veteran. I've been, deployed. I worked at Lockheed Martin and a lot of places. And I think one of the biggest things that I noticed, like even in the Army, there's like a fire system. It's called the FATADS. And it hadn't been updated for years, right? It literally took, it was like we would use map and compass because the machine would take 15 minutes to boot up. The battery died in 15 minutes. Google Earth took 15 minutes. By that point, the target already moved off the bridge. Like it is, things are slow. And I think like compliance is often a bottleneck. So you look at DocuSign, for example. They took them 7 years to get their FedRAMP. I mean, DocuSign, very like common software for digital signing, 7 years to get an ATO. When I worked at Amazon, our average to put services, I know we're managing huge regions for the government and billion-dollar contracts, 3 years to get from a commercial service to deployed into a national security DoD system. And so like that costs time, not just time and money, but also innovation, right? Like companies, I've got a lot of friends that are startup founders. They don't want to deal with like selling their software or hardware to the government because, hey, I got to like make money today and I got to move my roadmap. I got to raise money. I can't wait 3 years for the Air Force to come back and field something. Like things move quickly, right? And so I think a lot of innovation is missed out on because of that bottleneck. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are probably lots of bottlenecks in the overall procurement process, but this is one of them. And like I joke that like sometimes this is not the most exciting problem to be like working on. But it's one that like I have actually felt the pain of as like trying to get systems ATO'd and fielded. And so I think like that, I think that part of that statement is true. Now, what does cover do, right? This like 1,000 hours of work in 15 minutes. Like a lot of the work comes down to like generating documents and paperwork. It comes down to like looking at lots of different sources. So you're looking at your code, your system artifacts, policies, right? And like I mentioned earlier, systems are getting more complicated, not less. So there's more stuff to look at. And then the standards are getting more complicated and more numerous. So you just have this matrix of like, there's not enough humans to do the work. And so it's a great problem for generative AI. Like generative AI, LLMs are really good at looking through code, documents. You have to really manage how you train them. And we can get into like why Cover is able to do that well. But if you can do it well, it's a game changer in that. And I've been candidly like waiting for this moment for a long time. We've always thought about automating the ATO process. Sue Gordon, very big luminary sort of in the national security IT space. She wanted to do ATOs in a day, right? And that was a big thing NGA tried to push out for a while, but like the technology just wasn't there. I think we're in that moment now where the tech and the right moment in sort of the nexus of compliance and technology is capable of that. So
I think I got a T-shirt for you. I interviewed a guest once, and he said, "Look, speed is innovation." I said, yep. Whoa, that's really the case. I mean, that really is. I mean, you talk about this frustration, and by the way, in 1 year of lacking compliance, what kind of attacks have been taking place with code that hasn't been updated? I mean, there's something. Speed is innovation. Speed can also be prevention. I'm thinking too of attacks. I mean, that's what we're seeing happen.
I mean, that's a great point, John. So like there are, and like I brought some of those government agencies. There are some agencies that like their SSPs, their system security plans are like 3 years out of date, right? And so that means no one has looked at the security of that system or audited it in years just because it's too complicated or like it's just a lot of paperwork. And the government, it's funny, like nobody really understands, but like the number of government systems is in the thousands to tens of thousands. And all of those have to go through the same process as if I'm buying, DocuSign or Tableau or any of these other systems. And so, it's not just like compliance is annoying for software engineers and technical architects, but it's super necessary, right? Like it is what actually verifies and validates that you're meeting certain guidelines. And I'm sure both of us have been maybe victims of data breaches at some point. I know like my SF86 data from OPM at some point was leaked. So like information gets spilled and like companies are not, following through on those kinds of things. And it's a real problem, especially since so much of our information is now stored in data centers in the cloud and like, the security around the cloud and like how our data is there. It's super important.
Well, let me talk about human beings. Human beings, let's say people in the DIB, maybe they're never going to check. Oh, they're never going to check. Oh, they're never going to check. And all of a sudden they get a letter or an email where someone's going to check and audit them. Then they go to KOVR.AI and talk to you and go, Sri, we're under the gun. You don't understand. We don't have any time. We got to do this fast. That's I tell you, I know some individuals who suffer from that. No, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's like living in Florida. No, the hurricane's never going to come. No, the hurricane's never going to come. Inevitably, this is what I think what's happening now, and I think that's why I tossed out the word final in the beginning. I think people are starting to get hit with these letters and going, oh, now what am I going to do? And if you want to do documentation in 3 months or something, manually, what with an intern and an Excel spreadsheet or something, there's a lot of problems there, huh?
Yeah, agreed. And so like just to put some information out there, like so there are 80,000 entities, companies you could call it, that are in the defense industrial base. All of them are now under the gun to comply with CMMC.
I know.
been like a year, right? Like it's like by the end of next year, basically. And even the audit, which by the way, like as much as I can innovate on the generating the assessments and doing all the work and whatever, the audit process is still the audit process and the government approval process is still the government approval process. I can't make the government move faster. That's like 6 months, right? So you really are like under the gun now to get all your stuff ready.
They are.
And I raised a really good point that like they do check, right? There was a big company, I'm not going to name it, but it was in the news. They had multi-million-dollar fine hit because of CMMC non-compliance. They had self-attested things, and they actually someone checked, and they got hit with a huge fine. And they're starting to check. Like this is, and you don't, and like definitely small companies are the ones that are. I think I'm going to have the hardest time sometimes because like it's a lot of money and time, and you're trying to win a big contract. You're trying to have that moment, and a lot of the small businesses, I think, are like, well, I could just attest that I'm doing it right. Like who's going to come and check? And like it could really be a big deal. Like a year from now.
I know.
You could lose that contract completely. And then your whole company, your credibility too, right? So these are like government forms you're testing on. And if you could just do a little bit of work, right, with Cover, and there are other solutions out there that work with Cover, some other good companies like that won't cost you like an arm and a leg. You could actually attest with confidence and be sort of actually compliant. And that's, I think, what we're trying to put out the information is like, even if you just did some of the homework yourself, forget even using Cover, but just follow some of the right processes, you can get a little further. And so I think lack of information is a big thing out there right now, and misinformation on the compliance and what you have to do. So I'm really glad, that you're involved and that's happening. Yeah,
I was just thinking of the concept of self-attestation. Boy, in high school, I would have loved that. Okay. Statistics. Oh, yeah. I got an A.
Yeah,
oh, really? How about Latin? A. Oh, really? Latin? Oh, yeah. What about chemistry? A. Sri and I both got A's in chemistry. Oh, that's great. And it comes to, it's going to haunt you sooner or later. I mean, it's a tough position to be in. And I think the word scurry might be applied here is that there are companies in the DIB that are starting to scurry because, well, here it is in July. In the next couple of months, there are organizations, the federal government is spending some money, and if they go to ABC company and it's not compliant, they're going to go to your competitor. And so guess what? Now, all of a sudden, well, we should have, the squirrels put away acorns or people prepare for the hurricane. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, the snowstorm in Ohio, oh, that's a surprise. No, we didn't. Yeah. We didn't get snow tires, and we didn't get the truck, and we didn't get the snow blower. Oh yeah, we'll wait until November when they're all sold out, and they may wait until the last minute here, won't they? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to have that rush to do it, and I think like the other thing, it's not just about the attestation, right? Like when you do CMMC, you're architecting, like you're figuring out what is your boundary for controlled unclassified information, for FCI, like these very important types of data. And like you really have to like build another boundary or like another enclave or another environment that would host that. And like I've had some customers and people that I've talked to, they're like, what if I just bought a laptop and I just like put the stuff on there and that's like my CUI environment? Like, well, is that laptop connecting to a network somewhere? Is that network in the boundary? Like it's not so simple, right? Like you really do need to think about it a little bit, and it's important to think about it, right? Like it's important because this data is important, and like. And I think that it takes time to kind of build that into your company and organization. It doesn't happen overnight. And so like, it's one thing, to get the documentation and that done, but you still have to kind of build an environment too. And so there's a bit of engineering work that has to take place. Your employees have to get some training. It's not easy to do it last minute. So John, I 100% agree. Like waiting the last minute, there's just some things that take time and they're not really going to be always solved by software. So I think like, you got to like put that into your organization a little bit as well. So.
I did the open for this interview with some silly remark about cloud native and people, and I've seen people debate what is cloud native, what isn't. But guess what? You just trippingly in your tongue said CUI. Well, what is CUI? And there's a debate on what it is, what it isn't. You could, if you were a contractor, you might spend a week just what category to put this under. All of a sudden, you get someone like Sue who's been beat up and knocked around, and we know what to put it under. No, but it could be this. It could be. So where's the scope on CUI? This could be a debate you have in your little office in Woodbridge, Virginia, when the clock's ticking here, buddy. Huh? I mean, debates like that come up all the time, which I would imagine a company like yours already has resolved some of the issues.
Yeah, and I think that like boundary scoping is a really important part. And that's something like our company, we have like, you'll interact with a human being, they'll sit and understand your environment, and then they'll figure out what's relevant. And then you can go use the AI to like actually load in the information and it'll give you like the recommendation. But like I think you do need like a little bit of like that expertise to understand it. Look, the government, and I've worked in national security and like with classified data, like we overclassify a lot, like the government overclassifies, and that's definitely a thing. But like at the end of the day, like if you really need to set up a system to house that information when you have it, and that's like the key part. It's like, are you set up first of all to even hold that data if you were to get it? And I think a lot of people do struggle with the definition of CUI. And like I've had a customer that's like, is my compliance information CUI? Like, is the SSP CUI? Right? Like, is that it? Like, can I even give you that information? Is that CUI? And so we had to like run that down, talk to like an authority on it, figure, okay, that's not CUI. But like, and then there's a lot of rules, right? Like if you're in FedRAMP, if your data is in GovCloud, and you have a FedRAMP system, that system can technically hold CUI. So like if I just used only FedRAMP systems, like, is that okay? There's reciprocity between FedRAMP and DoD. So this is like a little bit of a complex web to navigate. And that's why it's important to like talk to people that are kind of like nerds about it and have nothing better to do than read the entire NIST 71 guide for a year. So I definitely think it's worth like to your, you might have asked a question earlier, like we do like free consultations. Startups, we actually like try to help them get their at least level 1 done in like a trial.
Maybe if you're listening to this and you're getting frustrated, go to KOVR.AI and talk to Sri and say, hey, can you help me? What's the situation? Should I just, jump out the window? Or, I mean, that'd be the bad advice.
Don't go buy a laptop and just put all your information on there. That is not going to work.
Yeah. So I have a friend who owns a small company in, let's say, Chantilly, and he is a government contractor for the DoD, and he does important stuff. And he has contractors for himself. Now we take that 80K and go, okay, now where do these little tendrils go in different areas? And all of a sudden, then I think someone's trying to get CMMC may have to worry about, is he going to have, or she have their suppliers?
You would have to get
open up a can
think
of
about
worms.
like Slack, right? Like a lot of companies use Slack, but you really have to make sure that you have are using the Slack version that is approved for CUI or like within your enclave or your boundary. You need their information, like their SSPs and their documentation that they're compliant. And so that's one of the things we try to do is also like we have connected with most of the vendors. So like if you're using Google or AWS or Microsoft or Slack or any of these tools, right? Like they all have SSPs and documentation on what they do to protect CUI. It's hard to get those things. Obviously, like we try to aggregate that and put that out publicly. And I think that's the other challenge. It's not just you. It's everything that you're using and everyone that you're interacting with. So it's equally important that your vendors, if they're going to be involved in whatever that CUI part of that contract is or that work or that software, that they're also vetted, right? So you look at everyone that's involved. And the other thing another misunderstanding about CMMC, just I don't want to tell me if I'm going down too much of a rabbit hole, but I am a compliance geek. But people also misunderstand that when you get a CMC, yes, the CUI part is important, but you have to get everything that's both in the boundary and out of the boundary as part of your overall like paperwork. Your SSP and your package talks about both. So let's say you had a U.S. company and then one that was like within that U.S. company, you had like a federal division that only deals with the federal government. Both that and the non-federal part are still within like the assessment, right? But the part that's in scope, the part that they're actually going to look at is the CUI part, but you still have to provide all the paperwork and documentation for the rest of it as well. So like they will look at, you need to have information on both. And so important to like really do the homework on both sides of that as well. And that's another misunderstanding is like, if I just do this one part or I get like an enclave, it's going to solve the problem. No, you still got to document everything else you're doing too. So really important that you start on that as well.
Now we got the Harvard MBA question, and it boils down to this. So let's say we have Jason Software, and they have 20 people on staff, and they're thinking about CMMC. Well, they don't have 5 full-time people that can do compliance work because the 20 people are billing, right? I mean, they got plenty of work to do. They got more than 40 hours work. So what are you going to do? Take someone who's bringing in money and say, okay, there, Sally, come on in here and do that. But about the contract she's on, I live in Virginia, and we call this a dilemma. It's a dilemma. It's like, well, what are you going to do now? You're going to pull something from that? Then what? Then you're going to lose the contract you're trying to get the CMC for?
And this, by the way, this is not a small, it's not a small company problem either, right? Like at Amazon, I would oftentimes trying to get these SSPs and things done for ATOs. And these are big services, right? Like RDS and EC, like huge services. I'd have to call some developer in Seattle and be like, hey, I'm working on this FedRAMP thing. Like, can you help me like with this thing? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But like those senior engineers at Amazon, they're hugely valuable resources, right? Like I'm tasking these people to do paperwork. And I think we one time calculated even at Amazon, like you're spending like $50 million on just the like hours burned on compliance stuff, right? And so big companies struggle with this too. And I think we even benchmark the cost, like the average cost, right? If you try to do the whole thing yourself, it's like $300,000 to get readiness for like things like FedRAMP or even CMMC. CMMC is a little cheaper, but like it's $100,000 in either consulting time or your employees' time. And that's why like we were, when we had sort of come up with a concept of Cover and really done some early proofs of concept with some companies and saw that like this works, right? The AI is actually reducing the time it takes. We had one of our customers do a DOJ compliance where the customer asked them, hey, I've got 80 controls you got to comply with. I need this done. And they did that in a week. Something that normally would have taken months to like a year was done in like a week, right? Like they sent the control, like it just remapped everything. And so, really, I think we're getting to a moment now where like we can reduce that burden and like taking people off the bench to spend their time. I've been a software engineer and like, sometimes you get like your entire application built and system built. And then everyone's kind of just doing ATO work for like 3 or 4 months to try to get it ATO'd. Yeah. And that's just like not a good use of that development time. And it's not a good use of business time or any other time. So, I think like there are definitely better ways to spend that. And so even if like, look, there are some people out there that are selling like CMMC type solutions and they're going to charge like $300,000, $400,000. Even then, it's still kind of a benefit if like you can get it all done, right? And like we don't charge anywhere near that. But like even that is just like, okay, I've at least done the cost benefit that I'm winning $1 million contract and I'm going to pay this much. So like I think there's you got to think about like your point's great. Like the value of the people's time is something people don't think about, and that's a huge thing, right? That hopefully Cover and other companies like that are going to solve.
So I got a soccer question for you. So let's say you're at a soccer match with your kids playing, and my grandkids are playing. We stand on the sideline there. And so I say, well, hey, Sri, give me 3 things I can do to maybe think about preparing for CMMC, just to pick one. And so just 3, take the mountaintops, the easy, cherry pick 3 ideas. What'd you tell them? What'd you tell me to do? Or hey, your neighbor, I don't know, you meet people all the time.
Yeah. So I'd say like the first thing is take a look at your like go through just a list of like what am I using today? What IT systems am I using today? Who are my vendors? Like what all am I using today? Right? Just do an inventory, right? Just do a little like we actually have a public one that I'm happy to send you a link to. You can send out, but we have like a questionnaire that very easy for people to do it on their own. It's just like a little bit of like just what am I using today? Am I using Slack? Am I on Google? Like, what am I using for email? Like, just figure out what you're using today. Like, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Even when you're going to go fill out the form, go and create a Spurs account. It doesn't take very long. Like, you can log in once you've got a cage code or sam.gov registration. You can use just a cage code is enough to get a Spurs account. And then you can see what it's going to ask you in the attestation. You can go one by one.
Good.
And you can just get an idea of what are the questions, right? Like, just go get an account and go see what the questions are. I would say the other one would be like reach out to us. That's like a little bit selfish, but I'd say outside of that, reach out to someone that knows what they're doing on CMMC. Like there are tons of good free resources out there too. There are trainings and things that just take like a day. We are actually going to be putting on a lot of free events with other companies throughout the year. A lot of conferences. Like I was just at an AI conference a couple weeks ago. Google and us and a bunch of other companies. We did a CMMC talk there. It was like, it's funny, they were talking about like all the Claude and GPT-4 and all the cool NVIDIA chips that are coming out. And then the CMMC booth had just like every single company was there because everyone's going to have to like deal with it. So like, you can find these sort of events and like just get it, like help you get an idea of what's coming up. So, I'd say those are some 3 things that like pretty easy to do.
Nice and practical advice. And why don't you send me a link to that? I'll put it on the show notes. And so if people, if they're walking their dog now and they say, hey, that guy's Sri, SRI, maybe I'll do that thing. Maybe I'll take a look. And what's real nice is just to have that as an option a lot of people don't know where to begin. So that's good to know. And Sri, we are running out of time here, unfortunately. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Sri Iyer, founder and CTO of a company called Cover, and it's spelled KOVR.AI.